Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story that is the richest juice in poison flowers. Our poor friend here has been poisoned and he is recovering, so we're going to ensure he is safe and leave him to rest. He'll be back soon. Mushrooms, murmurs the sun-touched gardener as you tuck the blanket around him. Safe here, all around. His jaw moves, chewing on nothing. So soft. He breathes and nuzzles his head into the pillow as if rooting through moist and yielding soil. You ensure he is safe and his door locked, then head out into the street. After the closeness of his sick room, the cavern air feels fresh against your face. Return to the boarding house. Couch next to the gardener's sickbed. His eyes flicker open. There is nothing behind them. Look, he whispers, holding out his empty, cupped hands. So many. Then he blinks. I saw the cavern, he croaks in a voice that is once again his own. But I picked the mushrooms. I need to go back. I'm so hungry all of a sudden. He sits up and rubs his eyes. I know how that sounds, but I think I have to. Come with me? You acquiesce because he asked you to? He has been through much. Or because you wish to see what happens? Has the antidote even worked? Let's go because he asked us to. People say to listen to your instincts, says the gardener as he shakily gets to his feet. But what if your instincts are the sort that condemn you to a life underground, infected with soul poisoning? Still, he pulls on his boots. I think I was right about you. After you have gone as far as you can by carriage, he takes your arm for support and directs you along a barren coastline. Together, you pick your way across the Z-slick rocks. The first time I came here, he says, I needed a map and even then I got lost. But this time I just sort of know. He stops and inhales the Z air. It's that way, he says. You help him along a muddy inlet to a cave. There's a light flickering gently from within. You look at each other and creep inside. You've arrived at the fungal chamber. Oh no. Inside, the cave is entirely lined with the same finger-like mushrooms that were clustered around the soulflower in the hothouse. They tremble towards the gardener as he makes his way across the spongy ground. He stoops to pick one, and before you can stop him, slips it into his mouth. His shoulders sag with relief as he chews. Then he realizes what he's done and yelps in horror. The sound echoes throughout the chamber. He staggers to his feet, but it is too late. The ground shakes and there is a shadow and a blow. The clay revolutionary knocks you to the ground. His compatriots appear at his flank. You are not alone here, and the gardener is in no shape to fight. We can either convince the revolutionaries you support their cause, it may even be true, or you can ask them to release you for the gardener's sake. Something terrible has happened to him. Oh God, what's the right answer here? Let's say for the gardener's sake. I don't know what the revolutionaries are revolutioning against. Let's ask for the gardener. So that was you in the hothouse, says the scholarly revolutionary, signalling for the clay comrade to step down. You have our sympathies. They crouch beside the gardener. If you've been poisoned by the soulflower, then why are you here and not getting that employer of yours to make you a cure? She's gone, chokes the gardener, now shaking with something other than fear. And we found a cure, and maybe it worked. But I had to come back here. I don't know why. Employers are all the same, spits the agitated revolutionary, using their workers for fuel and mulch until they're nothing but... It's not helping, interjects the scholarly revolutionary. They turn to the gardener. We can't undo what's happened to you, but maybe our efforts here will make it so the forces responsible loosen their grip on the Neath. We just want to learn how the soulflower functions. I trust you'll stay out of our way. The cave snakes off into the rocks, its every surface undulating with finger-like mushrooms. The revolutionaries have placed a lantern on the spongy ground, and it illuminates them as they harvest the fruiting bodies. The gardener sits on the cave floor, his head in his hands. Let's start at the top and work our way down, I guess. Let's explore the cave. What is this place? The mushrooms pulsate gently in the damp air and keep moving after the revolutionaries have picked them. They should be safe to touch, says the scholarly revolutionary, but don't eat them. They cast a nervous glance at the gardener. They set down their basket of gently writhing mushrooms. I learned of this cave when attempting to buy the soulflower from the botanist. I claimed to be a wealthy collector. She had no interest in selling, holding on for celebrity, I think. But she enjoyed bragging about having sourced these fungi. Apparently they spawned from spores carried in by the Z. Well, let's speak with the scholarly revolutionary. Of the three, they seem to be the most informed. I've tried to learn something of botany and mycology, says the scholarly revolutionary, but they don't come naturally. When I was at the university, I studied minds and actions. They squeeze a mushroom between their fingers and reject it before moving on to another. I left academia because I believed knowledge should not be the preserve of a select few. And yet here I am, carrying out secret research. They sigh. Still, I believe it is for the greater good that the cause understands the soulflower. We must do what we can to defend the Neath from the sun's seductive light. A full moon emerges, fruiting bodies bulge beneath your feet. Something is definitely happening in the background here. Do we speak with the clay revolutionary? Let's approach him with caution. The mushrooms in the unfinished revolutionary's basket have been crushed to a purple paste. In London, some stones are cobbles, he says with an unblinking granite stare. Some are statues. Who decides? The scholarly revolutionary pulls you away, a hand on your arm. My comrade is from a place where even the rocks are enslaved, they say quietly. He sees something in the cause, and has always been loyal. I must trust that he would alert us if we did something he found distasteful. Okay, let's speak with the agitated revolutionary. What brought him to this place? The agitated revolutionary's basket has only a few mushrooms in it, carelessly chosen and hurriedly picked. He seems far more preoccupied with the shore outside of the cavern. Storm's out there, he says. Over the Z, watching. Been watching me all my life. Talking to me. Telling me to change things. He turns his wild eyes upon you. Beneath his ragged beard, you realise he is still young. I listened to Storm, but no one ever listened to me. Not till I found a cause. A shoot pushes up through flesh. Uh-oh. We tend to the gardener. He is ailing. I had a dream in a boarding house, says the sun-touched gardener through chattering teeth. But I came here and the mushrooms grew into apple trees. I climbed one and it took me up through the clouds back home. His hot breath lights up his face. I want to go back, he says, to the surface. I know I can't, so I try to stop myself thinking about it. But that just makes me think about it more. And then I hate myself for thinking it, because it's my fault I'm down here, no matter what anyone else did. Damn it. I'm so tired. He gathers himself a little. I'm glad the revolutionaries are here too, he says eventually. I don't know if they're right about everything, but they're right to want to stop this happening to everyone else. The sun-touched gardener coughs. And again. This time, he does not stop. One by one, the revolutionaries put down their baskets and look at him. From all directions, the mushrooms reach towards him in viscous strands. They writhe and knot together, and it is no longer possible to tell in which direction the cave entrance lies. A lick of light erupts from the gardener's mouth, and the agitated revolutionary takes a step towards him. But the scholarly revolutionary grabs his ragged sleeve. We can't help him, they mutter. Well, let's watch. It is all you can do. Oh no, the seed of the soulflower has germinated. The sun-touched gardener struggles for breath, tearing at the buttons of his shirt. Heaving, he coughs droplets of molten sunlight. The mushrooms quiver, straining towards him like worshippers. He collapses, and they catch him when he falls, cocooning him. The gardener convulses beneath the fungal shroud, his movements becoming increasingly violent, until a glowing plumule erupts from where he lies. It strains upward, but it is already growing dim. It flaps, desperately trying to escape the rot that is already creeping up its stalk. The plant's flesh hisses as its cells collapse, and it goes dark. The only sound is your breathing, until there is a scrape, and the scholarly revolutionary is holding a lit match before their face. They fumble for their lantern and ignite it, to reveal a creeping pool of deliquescing fungus. The mushrooms beneath your feet are turning to liquid, the gardener still in their midst. Don't approach him. Be careful. You splash through the deliquescent mushrooms towards the gardener and roll him onto his back. His shirt is torn and his skin filthy from fungal residue. It is impossible to tell where the plumule emerged from. The growth itself is nowhere to be seen. The gardener gasps and sits upright, looking around the cave in confusion. The fungus-riddled earth beneath you starts to give way. "We have to leave!" shouts the scholarly revolutionary. You help the gardener to his feet, but despite the apparent success of the antidote, he is still weak. As he stumbles forward, the clay revolutionary stamps through the dissolving ground, flings the gardener over his shoulder, and runs. You follow. You race after the clay revolutionary as he crashes through a liquefying wall of mushrooms. The gardener still slung over his shoulder. Holding your breath, you follow, and do not stop running until you are out on the beach once more, bathed in the soft light from the cavern ceiling. The gardener slithers off the clay revolutionary's stone back onto the shingle. He falls to his knees with a crunch, inhaling the air. Let's catch our breath. The air is less close out here. "I think the antidote worked," says the gardener, rubbing his chest. "Whatever was in me, it's gone." I hope you're right, says the scholarly revolutionary, and that we haven't inadvertently sown a soulflower seed in the single most fertile place in the Neath. No, replies the gardener. I felt it'd die. Besides, he wipes a blob of liquefying fungus from his shoulder. It was almost impossible to source that flower from the surface. Plants like that don't grow anywhere near the canal, and even when they do, they only bloom once a decade. I'd say we've seen the last of the soulflowers for now. The agitated revolutionary wades a little into the water and looks up at the Z-mist gathered near the cavern roof. He believes there's some force over the Z telling him sunlight shouldn't be down here, says the scholarly revolutionary. He's never been able to explain it to me, but I know enough of urchins to accept that I probably wouldn't understand, even if he could. Let's look back inside the cave. Did the soulflower really die? The mouth of the cave is dripping with black deliquescence. Even as you let your eyes adjust to the darkness, you see nothing inside but the gentle glow of the cavern ceiling reflected on the slick pool of fungal matter at your feet. The gardener crunches up at the shingle and stands beside you. Now that it's over, he says, I suppose it's alright to admit that I was glad to see the sun one last time. I think if I hadn't, I'd still want to go back up there for real. He looks up at the cavern ceiling. As it is, I've never been so glad to see the false stars. Well, let's listen to the gardener. The gardener approaches the three revolutionaries. I'm coming with you. I'm coming with you, he says. I want to join the cause. But you love the sun, objects the agitated revolutionary. Don't you know that we're trying to... The scholarly revolutionary raises a hand to quiet their comrade. This is difficult, dangerous work, they say to the gardener. I know, the gardener replies. And you're right, he says to the agitated revolutionary. I do love sunlight, the feel of it on my face. But down here, anything that looks like sunlight is only going to hurt people, or just make them give up. I don't want to give up, or pretend I'm somewhere else. I'm here, and I want to help. Well, let's decide what to do next. You must all agree what is to be done, and whom is to be told. Advance the story. The light of the soulflower has been extinguished, exclaims the agitated revolutionary. Liberation! The only way we can be sure it's gone and arm ourselves against future incursions of sunlight, replies the scholarly revolutionary, is to share everything we've seen with the one we report to. Then we, or others from the cause, will have to come back here, research what's left of it. But still, even if this soulflower is truly dead, the venture would present a great risk and attract attention. It may not be wise. An argument erupts amongst the revolutionaries. The agitated revolutionary wants to take action. The cause must strike. Everything they've learned, he argues, is a potential weapon that could be turned against the sun's tyranny. The scholarly revolutionary acknowledges his reasoning, but urges caution. The cause is not a monolith, they argue, but a group of angry, imperfect people to whom this knowledge may be a liability. The clay revolutionary does nothing, but picks up a large rock from the shore and begins rolling it between his stone palms. The group may benefit from your perspective. Though the cause must know everything, the Neath must be able to defend itself from sunlight, or we can advise them to keep everything they have seen a secret. Your loyalties on this matter are your own. Hopefully their leader will be satisfied with the plant's remains. So the real question here, in more black and white terms, is do I want to support the liberation of night? and the fighting of the suns. It's a strange one because this is kind of the first story I've come across that has tried to explain the liberation of the night in a way that I can understand. Let's go with the cause must know everything. What's the worst that can happen? The agitated revolutionary climbs up the clay revolutionary's back and sits astride his shoulders. "Liberation!" he shouts, his words carrying over the Z. "Knowledge is a good thing," says the scholarly revolutionary, "in the right hands, and I may be biased, but I believe revolutionary hands are some of the least wrong." They look at the gardener. "What do you think you learned working for the botanist will help us?" "I used to work for the canal as well," says the gardener, watching his new comrades run into the shallows. "Nah, to get things, if you know what I mean." The scholarly revolutionary smiles. "This is where we part ways," says the scholarly revolutionary. "We have work to do. What we have learned here will keep the cause busy for some time." Behind them, the agitated revolutionary is silhouetted against the soft glow of the false stars as he punches his fist into the cavern air. Let's bid farewell to the revolutionaries, all four of them. For you at least. This episode is at an end. "I'll catch up with you," the sun-touched gardener says to his three new comrades, once you have said your goodbyes. They keep a tactful distance as he leads you a little way along the shore. "I said it before," he says, "but I knew there was something different about you right from the start. Maybe if you hadn't been poisoned and if we hadn't talked, I wouldn't have gone into the hothouse. And I'm not saying what the soulflower did to me didn't hurt, but I'm glad for all of it." He smiles at you then, a full, open-hearted smile that you have never seen before. That perhaps no one has seen since the man before you was young and foolish and cider drunk under the gentle rays of the real sun. You leave then. Before you round the cliff, you take one last look at the beach along which the four figures are ambling slowly, already deep in conversation. Oh, and here's the epilogue. Sometime after you return from the cave, an envelope arrives at your lodgings. It's addressed to you. The letter is from the aggrieved mycologist. He doesn't suppose you'll remember him, but he remembers you, and has reason to believe you may be of some assistance. He does not wish to cause you any trouble. Indeed, he suspects your involvement with the affair has already caused you plenty. But he wonders if you might help him track down the enterprising botanist. He's gone missing. Perhaps the threat of the soulflower has passed, or has only the smallest chance of re-emerging. But it may still be worth tracking down the woman who brought it into being, if only to satisfy your own curiosity. Right, let's track her down. You need not tell anyone what you learn. It's not difficult to learn that the university reclaimed the enterprising botanist's house, poison garden, and research. Tracking down the woman herself proves harder. Your enquiries take you back to Wolfstack Docks, where the Z-worn captain greets you from the deck of her trawler. "There was a woman, while back, looking for work," she says. "Can't recall her name, but I do remember thinking how ill-suited she looked for the Z. Terrible things can happen to people who aren't cut out for their life." She smiles and goes back to darning a fishing net. Upon your return to town, a neatly dressed man sidles up to you. The aggrieved mycologist asks if he might take you to dinner. Over dinner, the aggrieved mycologist alludes to what he knows of the enterprising botanist's research. He's spoken of it to no one else and has no intention of doing so. He assures you that when the university reclaimed her papers, there was nothing in them of real interest. "Look," he says, putting down his cutlery, "you don't have to tell me anything. You've got no reason to trust me. He sighs, I thought I'd ask. Let's be candid. Tell him of the whole business. How bad can it be? The aggrieved mycologist remains impassive as you tell him what happened in the cavern. That's what we've theorized would happen, he says eventually. She and I, when we were working on the project together, since the only way to test it would be to poison someone, I thought that's where the research had to end. She disagreed. She thought it would be alright if the subject consented. It would need to be someone with a longing to return to the surface, of course. He lowers his eyes. I was worried about that boy, but I never thought it would get as far as it did. Should have said something to someone. I'll have to carry that guilt for the rest of my life. He pays for your meal and orders you a carriage. Thank you for your candor, he says. I can't say it brought me peace of mind, but I've come to learn that the truth is more important than one's comfort. Wait, so he hired him just for this experiment? God damn. This marks the end of the exceptional story. That is the richest juice in poison flowers. And with that, we've come to an end. I liked that story a lot. But then I am a sucker for poison gardens, mushrooms, and botany. Not that you'd know from my horrendous mispronunciation of pretty much anything that was related to botany or mycology. But either way, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Did anything go different for any of you who played through this story? Is there a different ending, or is this a kind of a straight road sort of story? There is obviously another exceptional story here, the repayment of debt, and we shall be doing that soon. But thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does help keep this channel going. And as always, I'll see you next time.